Well, it's Wednesday, and you all know what that means. That means once again we get to review AEW Dynamite as they're in the road to Full Gear. So anything could happen before we get to Full Gear. But first things first, we're going to review ICW No Holds Bars with Volume 35 with horror story, no Deathmatch Horror Story that took place on the 29th of October. A lot of interesting took place, not to mention two title matches, one by the IWTV and of course their native title, which is the ICW American Deathmatch title. But also we're going to be talking about what's been going on in the World Pro Wrestling and our news updates. So let's get ready for another episode of Deleted Wrestle Zone.
Are you ready? Get up, get up! 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 Get up, get up!
Welcome everybody to the Deleted Wrestle Zone, all things that is pro wrestling with AEW, NXT, New Japan Pro Wrestling, Impact Wrestling, the National Wrestling Alliance, various promotions, wrestlers, matches, and championships. I am your host, Gerard here. So let's begin with ICW No Holds Bars. This is volume 35 Deathmatch Horror Story. This took place on the 29th of October. Now it opened up with the Death Samurai Akira taking on Lucky 13. Now, I thought this match was going to be very gruesome, but Akira was able to, of course, to defeat Lucky 13 by applying the death penalty, giving him, of course, the win. No wonder he's called the Death Samurai. Next up, we got Chris Bradley taking on Cassie Kruger, the alter ego of Casanova Valentine. Think of it like Wade Bride, who had Sister Abigail, but much crazier. So anything could possibly go wrong on this one. But I think the best moment of this particular match is how Cassie was able to apply the ultra violent Mudo lock, basically using an object onto the head of Chris Bradley in order to pick up a win. So that was the best way when that Kruger could do it, and that's pretty much it. Next up, we got the founder Danny DeMonto taking on 440's Eddie Only. Now, keep in mind, Danny DeMonto has a bone to pick with Eddie Only's friend and fellow Ohioan, Atticus Coker. Now, this match seemed like it was going to go in favor of DeMonto. However, Atticus Coker, who has his issues towards him because of what happened previously, Atticus Coker was no show, and DeMonto decided to say some negative things about him. So now he's getting into the head. So he attacked him, and the match went over to Eddie Only to win, but except it was Atticus Coker who defeated him. Now there's still no telling when those two will end up having a match, but it could take any given time. Now while DeMonto was dealing with the situation that took place with Atticus Coker, the IWTV Independent Wrestling Champion shows up at AC Mac, who's putting up his title on the line against anybody, and the person who responded is the resident monster Kroll. Now, you probably would have thought this match was going to be a very difficult one. No, it felt like a cake and a walk by Kroll, but he did defeat him by applying the Scorch Earth and becoming our brand new IWTV Independent Wrestling Champion. Next up, we got Brandon Kirk versus Eric Young. Now, Brandon Kirk has been dealing with some issues recently with his wife, Casey Kirk, who is the current ICW American Deathmatch Champion. However, things did not go so well. He ended up in the, how to put this, ref's decision. Apparently, he was out. He couldn't move. But after that, he was approached by none other than Monto, who's concerned for his well-being after what he's been going through dealing with his wife Casey. Still unclear what's been going on with Casey, but she's continued to show she is tough as nails. Next up, we got John Wayne Murdoch versus Hoodfoot. John Wayne Murdoch, I don't know how long he came back. As you know, he's been mostly been participating with GCW. He has been dealing with Hoodfoot before. Now, this was a much brutal event. Murdoch, who's been one of the best deathmatch wrestlers we've seen so far, has to take on like a rising star in the deathmatch scene, which is Hoodfoot. But Hoodfoot was able to apply the backdrop driver onto John Wayne Murdoch to pick up the win. Now, our main event is the ICW Deathmatch, um, American Deathmatch Championship. We have Mark Tremont taking on Casey Kirk. I thought this match was like, okay, it's going to fall into favor into Mark Tremont because A, he's a bigger dude. Now, he refuses to hurt a woman, but that did not stop Casey no matter what. But the one thing that was interesting, as soon as this match was in progress, Kroll shows up and Casey put the chokehold on him, forcing him to pass out, and the referee had no other choice but to call it. But what does this mean? What is the relationship between Kirk and Kroll? It shows now that they both are champions in their own rights, but did Casey decided to turn her back on her husband? We don't know. But I know Brandon will try to find a way to get back, but it's still unclear what is Kroll's business. So we'll find out when that day comes. But I think that's pretty much it what we have for ICW. No holds bars, but let's move on with AEW Dynamite. Okay, AEW Dynamite. It opened up with 8-man tag team action. Team number one, we have, of course, the Guns, Austin and Colton, teaming up with the number one contenders, Swerve in Our Glory, Lee and Strickland. But of course, they had, what's his name? Morrissey by their side. However, we have the opponents, FTR, Harwood, and Wheeler teaming up with the Acclaim. However, Daddy Ass, who still has his issues towards um, Swerve for what he did last time, tries to take them out. But I have to say there were some good moments in this particular match, between the Acclaim and FTR. Now, keep in mind, FTR maybe still has their obtained for the AEW World Titles, tag team titles. But however, we do know that right now, at the moment, the Acclaim has to defend them against Swerve and Our Glory. That is a great moment. But however, the one thing that was amazing is, of course, um, they put the mic drop Colton, onto Colton. But however, Ace Austin got the big rig as the real one that they've been trying to mimic, and it did allow for, of course, um, Bowens to pick up the win, winning the match. Now our next match we have a hearing say from MJF. Now MJF is now coming into Full Gear, as you know, most likely the guy who could walk out as the champion. As you know, this is one of the titles that he has desired for from the very beginning. That is something we know. So he gave us peace of mind about Moxley, despite the fact that they both come from two different cloths. But it's going to be interesting what's going to happen at Full Gear. Now we have our first round matches for the AEW World Title Eliminator. We have Ethan Page along with Stokey Hathaway, who gets involved. We do have Eddie Kingston Ortiz. However, I thought this match was great. Now, Kingston had this match right where he wanted, but if it wasn't for that creep Stokey Hathaway to get involved, none of this would happen. But Ethan Page was able to overturn it and turn the Ego Edge into an avalanche Ego's Edge to pick up the win. Now, Ethan Page did say that he's going to win the whole thing and become the next AEW World Champion. Now, we do get an interview with Jose and Rush. As you know, Rush was told that he is now part of the Eliminator, and they think with this, they call him 10, saying that if Rush wins it, he has no other choice but to leave Dark Order to that, but still living in delusional. But Rush did stated that he had opportunities that he may blow it. So anything could happen. Now our next match is the TNT title in an open challenge. We have Ari Daivari taking on Warlow. Now you can guess this match ended with Ari Daivari with the powerbomb symphonies. But as you know, during that after the post match, Warlow still has his issues towards Powerhouse Hobb and all this other stuff. But out of nowhere, Samoa Joe choke hold him, as you know, because he shoved him to the side last week. Because right now Warlow is unhinged with the attack of Powerhouse Hobbs, but right now it's told that this is not Powerhouse Hobbs doing. He tells him that he is not aligned with him. So basically, Samoa Joe did things on his own accord. Now, as you know, our next interview with Renee, we have Jade Cargill, who's been on Hinge ever since Nyla Rose has been stole the title and defending it, claiming herself as the new TBS champion. Well, looks like that title will be on the line this coming on Full Gear. This is once and for all between Jade Cargill and Nyla Rose. Will Nyla Rose defeat her, or will defeat her and be the first person to defeat Jade Cargill? Well, we don't know. Now, our next little segment on the ring, we have the face to face confrontation between Britt Baker and, of course, Saraya. Now, Britt Baker goes out saying, that the only reason that she felt that she's the one who built this whole thing. Like, she feels that someone like Saraya is invading her home, all that stuff. But however, that's besides the point. Saraya said that's all she thinks about. The fact is that she looks at Britt Baker that she is the spoiled brat who was given handed over to the handed everything over on a silver platter. And of course that, she doesn't know anything. Like Soraya talked about how she got in a car accident and ended up in the same match on that very day, that she busted her balls longer than Britt Baker. So basically it's like Soraya is the one who won the war, saying who had the much struggle. So, but however, she dropped the bombshell right in front of Britt Baker. There's going to be a match between those two at Full Gear. But however, Britt Baker tries to knock her out, but failed. And of course, Saraya got away with it. Now, as you know, what we saw last time, we saw Cole Carter help Sanjay Dutt and Jay Lethal and Simon Singh to deal with Darby Allin. However, it was revealed that they paid Cole Carter just to do a job, and they paid QT Marshall. However, Orange Cassidy and Danhausen, along with the best friend, show up. Danhausen's not happy that QT ruined Halloween for him, but you know, Allen, Orange Cassidy, he's willing to put his All Atlantic title on the line, and Lee Johnson's gonna get it. We all know how that's gonna end. Lee Johnson's gonna lose. But however, Trent decided to pick up a fight with Jay Lethal, and that's what happened. Now Jay Lethal attacked um, Trent Berg, tried to slow down the knees and all that, and not to mention, it was a very much technical aspect coming from Lethal. But the best moment is Sanjay Dutt got cursed and all that, and of course, Satnam Singh headbutted Danhausen, and that kind of sucked. But it did allow for Jay Lethal to do the lethal injection onto Trent, giving them the win. However, Tony tried to get an interview with Jay, but Sanjay Dutt, being the dumbass that he is, decided to claim that he is smarter. And of course, Jeff Jarrett comes out. He decides to call out Sting and Darby Allin once and for all to deal with him. But he decided to take his first. But apparently, one of the stage managers tried to wind him up, trying to tell him, to try to cut it short. But no, he decided to attack him. But he ran to the hills. Now, our next interview, we have Jungle Boy, who he feels this feud between him and Christian Cage and Luchasaurus is far from over. So apparently he has something cooked up that he's going to spread about at Rampage. I'm looking forward to that. So we'll see what happens. Now John Moxley comes out with of course William Regal. They give their little comments and thoughts about MJF, all this. So basically, they said that he claims he's the devil. That kind of sets a different tone. So basically, we haven't. So he's like not exactly impressed or disappointed, but basically like, what the hell are you talking about? That sort of thing. So we'll see what happens then. Our next match we have Jamie Hayter versus Sky Blue. But Sky Blue had backup, and that is Tony Storm and all this other stuff. Now keep in mind, Tony Storm put Jamie Hayter a little bit on edge. As you know, they have that match at Full Gear for the AEW interim title. Well, Britt Baker and Jamie Hayter calls it the world title. Keep in mind, Thunder Rosa is still the champion, and we're yet to hear from her yet until that day comes. So the match was pretty good. I didn't enjoy it, but it was the Ripcord Lariat by Jamie Hayter that finished the deal. So we'll see what happens at Full Gear. Now, our last final interview, Alex Marvez tried to get an interview with Ricky Starks, but he was viciously attacked by Lance Archer, who will be facing at the tournament for the AEW Eliminator World title. So we'll see what happens then. Now, our main event, we have the 2 out of 3 falls match, Sammy Guevara versus Bryan Danielson. However, this match went into a different segment. Sammy got himself disqualified, giving Bryan Danielson the win. The second fall into favor to Sammy when he applied the GTH, but the final fall came to Bryan Danielson. But before anything happened, Ty Mello was ejected out because she pulled the referee. She did not count out what happened, but it was of course the bell lock by Bryan Danielson that picked up the win for him to win, and apparently Sammy kind of passed out. He was out. That gave him the win right there. So the real question is, what's next for Bryan Danielson? We just gotta wait and see what happens when we get to that match for the ROH World Title. I think that's pretty much it. I believe it's time for news updates. Okay, welcome to our news updates. Now, in addition to what happened with Nick Aldis, as you know, I mentioned that he sent in his notice that he was leaving NWA. Well, it turns out before Nick Aldis made his decision to send his notice, Taryn Terrell also made that same assumption. So this happened like a month ago. So reasons behind that, creative issues, sort of things like that. But she's willing to finish off NWA for whatever remaining dates she has left with them, and then she'll be a free agent. So it's, as you know, there has been talks about this with the NWA. I will be talking on the NWA stuff possibly this coming Wednesday for my podcast. Since it's already Wednesday, I have to wait for another week, but I'll be finding out more information on that. Now, as you know, recently I talked about two former young lions that made their way back to Japan, and that is, of course, Ren Narita, who declares himself the son of Strong Style, and of course, the newest returnee is, of course, Shota Umino, known as Roughneck. Now, Yota Tsuji is among those guys that came from the same class as them. Tsuji is now announced that he left Rev Pro, and now he's currently in Mexico, more particularly with CMLL. Now, we don't know how long he's going to been there. I know he's been with Rev Pro since 2020. It's still unclear when he'll be making his way back to return. There's those are saying that there is the possibility he could join the United Empire. That is something we don't know yet. We know he's a member of the Legion, which has an association with the United Empire. Now, if you guys never heard of this German promotion, this is called WXW. They have their annual tournament called 16 Carat Gold that will take place from March 10th to the 12th. They are announced for the third participating involved in this tournament. It's going to be none other than Trey Miguel. I've seen Bandito participate in this and a few others, so yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Now, Interesting, exciting news coming from ChocoPro. They announced that they'll be heading to UK this weekend. They will have a couple of matches, but however, all these matches will be pre-taped. They will not be live like we normally see. But two matches have been announced for this particular days. We have Masahiro Takanashi and Chris Brooks taking on Kid Lycos and Millie McKenzie. This is going to be interesting. And then finally, Shigehiro Iri versus Leon Slate. I'm so excited for that. Now, excellent news for all WWE fans who've been probably wondering what this is going to end. It's been announced by WWE that, of course, the 24/7 championship is now deactivated, so rest in peace. I have to say, the coloring, all that, this belt was a joke to me. Nothing compared like the hardcore belt that we enjoy. But yeah. Now our final updates, we have GCW. Several matches have been announced for upcoming events. The first one is from Aura that will take place on the 20th of November. We have Matt Cardona taking on Jordan Oliver. I think that's going to be a hell of a match. And then finally, America's Most Wanted will take place on the 16th of December. We have Gringo Loco teaming up with Los Vipers to take on Aries, Commander, and ASF. So I'm looking forward to those matches as well. So I think that's pretty much it what we have with our news updates. I believe it's time to call it a day. Well, I hope everybody enjoys this episode. Coming up, we got Impact Wrestling and, of course, MLW's back. So we'll continue on with more of that. And if there's any other events I'm definitely going to be reviewing, I'll put those as soon as possible. I'm still waiting for Watch Pro Wrestling to um, upload the latest Stardom events. I'm still waiting on that. There's still a couple events I haven't seen yet. Most likely the two event and 1 day event by H2O. I don't know what other ones. Oh yeah, OWV, OVW. I haven't seen that yet, but we'll see what happens then. So right now, I'll see you guys in the next DWZ time. Same DWZ channel. I must bid all of you adieu. So goodbye. Mwah, and have a nice day. Bang.